Today we are going to see History Grade 12, Unit 5. The subtopics are the fascist occupation and patriotic resistance 1936 up to 1941. Second, the War of Liberation and Ethiopian independence. Students, after the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain about Italian occupation and the War of Liberation of Ethiopia. Second, list the Ethiopian famous patriotic leaders. Third, point out the sacrifice paid by Ethiopian resistance fighters. The last one, explain how did Ethiopian patriotism manifest itself in the war with Italy since 1936 up to 1941. 5.3, the fascist occupation and the patriotic resistance. The colonial administration of Italy in Ethiopia. The fascists ruled Ethiopia lasted for 5 years. This was Italian occupation for 5 years. Italian East Africa, mind you students, the Italian East Africa was divided into 6 regions with their respective capital city. Eritrea, including Tigray, the center of this Asmara. Amhara, including Bagemidr, Wollo, Gojam, North Shawa, its capital Gondar. Oromo, Sidama, its capital Jimma. Addis Ababa, including Shawa, the whole Shawa, center in Addis Ababa. The Harar, center at Harar. Italian Somaliland, including Ogaden, its capital was Mogadishu. Those are the 6 subdivisions of Italy in the Italian eastern part of Africa. Each of 6 regions had its own governor general. Mind you students, each of 6 regions have their own governor general. The highest authority of East Africa is held by Mussolini Viceroy, the Mussolini Viceroy who lived in Gannat al-Ul Palace. Gannat al-Ul Palace nowadays Addis Ababa University. Addis Ababa was the center of Italian East Africa. The center of Italian East Africa was Addis Ababa. Mussolini's viceroy are the following orderly. The first, Pietro Badoglio or Pietro Badoglio. He was the first viceroy of Italy in Addis Ababa. Second viceroy, Rodolfo Graziani. As I told before in the previous topic, Rodolfo Graziani, he was the Hyena of Libya. The third one, Amado Umberto or the Duke of Aosta, the third viceroy in Addis Ababa. The last one, mind you students, the last one was more liberal mind than before him. That's before him, before it indicates Rodolfo Graziani and Pietro Badoglio. During the year of Italian occupation, the fascist authority in Ethiopia largely confined with the urban centers. The fascists introduced electricity, new road, and pure water to the city. Mind you student, before Italian occupation, the commercial center of Addis Ababa was Arada. After Italian occupation, the center or the commercial center of Addis Ababa became Mercato. Then, in addition to this, Italian built different industry in the different parts of Ethiopia. For example, the cotton and cement factory established at Dredua. The patriotic resistance. The fascist authority limited into urban centers. The rural area or countrysides are the center of national liberation struggle. Mind you, student, the rural area or the countrysides, those areas are the center of national liberation struggle. The patriotic resistance movement developed into two distinct stages. The first stage was until February 1937. It was the first stage of Ethiopian patriotic resistance. The prominent leader of the resistance in the early phase was the highly ranking nobility. Mind you, student, in the first phase of resistance was led by the high-ranking nobility. For example, Ras Desta Damtau, Ras Imru Haile Selassie, Asrat Kasa, and Asfausan Kasa. Those are the sons of Ras Kasa Hailu. The educated Ethiopians, the soldiers and officers, by the agreement, they set up the Black Line organization. The main aim of this organization, in order to continue the resistance, the organization military leaders were, the leaders of Black Line organization were Lieutenant Colonels Balai Haile Ab, Kifle Nasibu, and Katama Basha. Those are the leaders of the Black Line organization. Ras Imru was forced to take leadership of the movement and to strike on fascists in Addis Ababa. Ras Imru organized troops from Wallagga and Ilibabor to enter Addis Ababa, but they were defeated near Gojab River by fascist force. The force of Ras Imru was defeated by fascists around Gojab River. Another leader of anti-fascist was led by Ras Desta Damtau. Ras Desta Damtau also obtained some assistance from the patriotic force from Dejazmach Bayyane Merid and from Dejazmach ገብረ ማርያም ጋሪ. ገብረ ማርያም ጋሪ and Dejazmach Bayyane Merid tried to assist Ras Desta Damtau. Ras Desta Damtau was defeated by the force of fascists at Gogiti, a village of Gurage, in February 1937. Then fascists captured Ras Desta and killed him at Butajira town, publicly executed him by firing squad. The two sons of Ras Kasa, Abarra Kasa and Asfausan Kasa, became famous taking part in the abortive attacking in Addis Ababa. The attacking of fascists by Ethiopian patriots planned into four directions. This was the plan of Ethiopian patriots to struggle against fascist force in Addis Ababa. Those directions, the north of Addis Ababa was led by Abarra Kasa and Asfausan Kasa. South of Addis Ababa was led by Adwa hero Dejazmach Balcha Safo, in his nickname Balcha Banafso. Northwest of Addis Ababa, he was led by Ras Ababa Aragai. And east of Addis Ababa was led by Dejazmach Fikra Maryam Minadu. Those are the four directions of Ethiopian patriots to struggle against the fascist force in Addis Ababa. The Bishop of Wollo, mind you student, the Bishop of Wollo, Abuna Petros, he was an outspoken and anti-fascist patriot, was a moving spirit behind the plan. But the attack was poorly planned and lacked effective coordination and timing. Because of lack of effective coordination, lack of timing, the attacking was not effective. Then Abuna Petros caught publicly executed on 29 July 1936 in Addis Ababa around Atikilti Tara, publicly executed Abuna Petros. Then Abarra Kasa and Asfaw Sankasa are retreated to Salali, to the north of Addis Ababa. Mind you, student, there was a lot of banda during the time. Afterwards, they were persuaded by Ras Hailu Taklahaimanot. Ras Hailu Taklahaimanot, he was the banda. Ras Hailu Taklahaimanot, leading fascist collaborator, who promised them they would not kill, not to be killed, to surrender to the fascists. But, mind you, student, before the capturing of Abarra Kasa and Asfaw Sankasa, the fascist force was promised. But later, Italians, the fascists not keep the promise, killed the two brothers. That means Abarra Kasa and Asfaw Sankasa was killed on 21 December 1936. Dejazmach Balcha was killed while fighting the fascists in the southern part of Addis Ababa. At a place he was killed in Memorial Hospital. The Dejazmach Balcha Hospital was late constructed and still bears in his name. In addition to Balcha Hospital, there is a Balcha Secondary School around the area. Second, patriotic resistance. By the outcome of abortive attempt to kill the Marshal Graziani, to kill Rodolfo Graziani on February 1937. February 1937 was the beginning of the second phase of patriotic resistance. The action was taken by Abraham Deboch and Magos Asgadom. Abraham Deboch and Magos Asgadom, they tried to kill Benito Mussolini at Gannat al-Ul Palace. In the public gathering called the Gannat al-Ul Palace, celebrating the birthday of Italian prince. Nowadays, Gannat al-Ul Palace, nowadays, Addis Ababa University. The two young men throw a bomb on Graziani and other colonial officers. Graziani wounded and some officers were died in the action. Then followed a wholesale massacre by the fascist troops and Askaris inside and around Addis Ababa for 3 days. That means from February 19 up to February 21, 1937. For 3 days, there was a massacre in Addis Ababa. Educated Ethiopians, mind you, student, the educated Ethiopians were the main target of the massacre. This act almost totally destroyed the first generation of modern educated Ethiopians. Student, mind you here, it destroyed the first generation of modern educated Ethiopians by the action of fascists. The other one, 499 monks were reported to have been killed at the monastery of Debre Libanos. About 499 monks were killed by fascist force at Debre Libanos monastery. Then the Graziani massacre resulted in the outbreak of a country-wide anti-fascist patriotic resistance in the second phase. The guerrilla warfare increased in the countryside like in Shawa, Gojam, Gondar, Bagemidr, and so on. In the different parts of Ethiopia, anti-fascist propaganda and struggle was expanded. The patriot employed various tactics with final goal of bringing an end of the fascist rule in Ethiopia. The tactics include ambush of enemy envoy, cutting communication lines, and at times striking the fascist force. Those are the tactics of Ethiopian patriots to struggle against the fascists at the time. The patriot faced lack of sufficient supplies and logistics. It was the problem of Ethiopian patriots during the time. The other one, የውስጥ አርበኞች የውስጥ አርበኞች contribute many things to patriot in the ways of struggle by giving information to the patriot. Their supporter who liked and worked with the enemy, then they give important idea for the Ethiopian patriot. For example, they were give moral and supply and other assistance. For example, ሸዋረገድ ገድለ in Addis Salam town, she helped the Ethiopian patriots greatly. She preparing favorable condition for the patriots between 1937 up to 1941, more than 1 million lire. Lire is the currency of Italy. More than 1 million lire was spent for military purpose in the colonies of each year by the Italian government. During the time, the patriotic resistance contribute in a great deal in weakening the fascists, which were finally defeated and forced to surrender in 1941. Some of the famous leaders of patriots were, there are a lot of patriots during the time, but the most famous patriot in the struggle with fascist force were Ras Abebe Aragai. He was the patriot in Shawa. Baqqala Wayya, Garasu Duke, Balai Zallaka Lakau, he was the patriot of Gojam. Amora Wubna, he was the patriots around Gondar area. Takala Walda Hariat, those are the famous patriots. In addition to those, others contribute for the success of Ethiopian victory in 1941, like Jagamak Ello contribute to fight with Italy at the time. The two Ethiopian nationalists, they struggle fascists out of Ethiopia. For example, the Raiders and Abdissa Aga. The Raiders, he killed the Italian fascist soldiers at scare their own country. He struggled fascists in Rome. Rome is the capital city of Italy. In Rome, the Raiders struggled with the fascists. Then he was died in 1937 at Rome. The other one, Abdissa Aga. He was conducted along fighting against the fascists in their own country. He struggled fascists in Italy. He was a prisoner of war in the island of Sicily. Also, he showed an exemplary patriotism in Italy itself in the time of Second World War. In the time of Second World War, Marshal Abdissa Aga involved in the Allied power to struggle against Axis power, involved in the British troops. The other one, the banda or collaborators. There are a lot of banda in Ethiopia. Some of the bandas were Ras Hailu Taklahaimanot of Gojam. He was a banda. The other banda of the time, Ras Siyum Mangasha of Tigray. He was another banda during the time. The other one, Ayaleo Birro of Samin. He was another banda. The last one, Abba Jobir of Jimma. Ras Hailu Taklahaimanot of Gojam, Siyum Mangasha of Tigray, Ayaleo Birro of Samin, and Abba Jobir of Jimma. Those are a banda or collaborated to Italy to against their own country. This is all about the struggle of Ethiopian patriots. The last lesson, the War of Liberation and Ethiopian independence. In 1940, an event of great importance for the liberation of Ethiopia occurred in Europe. This was Italy entered to Second World War on the side of Germany. By the way, students, it was a historical day for Ethiopia. June 10, 1940, Benito Mussolini declared war on Britain and France. Before the capitulation of Paris on June 14, 1914, before 4 days, June 10, 1940, Italy declared war on Britain and France. Then Italy entered to Second World War on the side of Hitler became a serious danger to the British interest in the eastern part of Africa. Because in the eastern part of Africa, Britain had different colonies. For example, the British colony. Kenya was a British colony. Sudan was the British colony. Uganda, British colony. Zanzibar, Tanganyika, and British Somaliland. In the same region, Italy also had a vast colonial empire. It had 200,000 troops in the eastern part of African empire. As a result of this, Great Britain started to assist our country, Ethiopia. Britain feared that with the help of Hitler's army, Italy would expand in East Africa and take away its colonies. Then Britain had to act quickly and drove out Italian force from East Africa. Then British government had ignored Emperor Haile Selassie's request for military assistance before Italy entered to the war. Mind you, student, before Italy entered to the war, British and France supported Mussolini to capture Ethiopia at oral level agreement. But on June 10, 1914, Benito Mussolini with allies Hitler declared war on Britain and France. It led to British government began to supply military assistance to the Ethiopian patriots in the preparation for final campaign in the East Africa. Then the Soba Military Academy was opened to train Ethiopian officers in Sudan. Soba Military Academy. It was opened in Sudan. In addition to this, British government also arranged for Haile Selassie moved by air to Sudan. Emperor Haile Selassie came to Sudan from Britain. Then Emperor gave instruction. Mind you, student, from Sudan, Emperor Haile Selassie gave instruction to anti-fascist patriotic resistance in Ethiopia. The Britain started assistance to Ethiopian force in the following direction: to drive away Italian from East Africa. The first from Sudan. From Sudan, the British army under General Platt. General Platt, he was war leader of British. He started from Sudan and entered to Eritrea. He made an offensive against fascist force in Eritrea. The major theater of the war in Eritrea was Italian stronghold at Karan. Karan was the stronghold of Italy. Then in the hands of British force after 53 days of struggle. After 53 days of struggle, Karan captured by the British force. Second, another British force from Sudan accompanied with Emperor Haile Selassie. Emperor Haile Selassie was involved in the second British force. The Emperor and the British force entered to Gojam in the western Ethiopia. This was the Gideon force. The Gideon force under the leadership of Colonels Dan Sanford and Charles Wingate. By the way, there were a memorial school in Addis Ababa, Wingate and Sanford School. Dan Sanford and Charles Wingate, after crossing the border of Ethiopia, these forces were joined by different group of Ethiopian patriots. The combined force fought the fascist troops in Gondar and Gojam and continuing fighting all along their way to Addis Ababa. The third major British force was organized in Kenya. Mind you, student, the first and second were started from Sudan. The third major group was organized in Kenya under the leadership of Commander General Cunningham. Cunningham, he was a war general of British. He started to assist Ethiopia from Kenya. He was made a quick advance into Italian Somaliland, then to Harar and forced Italian surrender. The British army under General Cunningham and the Patriot Force drove fascist troops outside from Addis Ababa on April 6, 1941. Italian force left Addis Ababa. The Ethiopia was liberated by the combined force of Britain and Ethiopian patriots. Mind you, student, after a month later, on May 5, 1941, Emperor Haile Selassie victorious re-entered Addis Ababa. Emperor Haile Selassie was re-entered Addis Ababa on May 5, 1941. Then Ethiopia was liberated after 5 years of fascist rule. Our country, Ethiopia, was liberated after 5 years of fascist occupation on April 6, 1941. Students, generally, today we have seen about the fascist occupation and the patriotic resistance. Different Ethiopian patriots contribute for the success of Ethiopian victory in 1941. They sacrificed their own lives during Italian occupation. Some of the famous Ethiopian patriots were like Balai Zalleka, Amora Ubne, Garasu Duke, Jagama Kello, Zero Idris, Abdissa Aga, and so on. Those were sacrificed different things for the independence of their own country. The other one, the War of Liberation and Ethiopian independence. For the independence of Ethiopia, the British government assists our country. The British government assists Ethiopia for their own self, to protect their own colony in the eastern part of Africa, rather than the interest of Ethiopia, for their own interest only. But the British assist Ethiopia from Sudan, starting from Sudan. After 53, they struggled, they captured Karan. The other one, Gideon Force liberated Gojam and way back to Addis Ababa. But General Cunningham, he captured Addis Ababa from fascists on April 6, 1941. Students, answer the following questions. The first question, what was the role of Black Lion organization during the time of Ethio-Ethiopian War? Second question, list the known Ethiopian patriots. Third question, mention the British war general supported the Ethiopian force during the time of War of Liberation. The fourth one, how were the Italians driven out from Ethiopia after their 5 years of occupation? The fifth one, what was the role of Emperor Haile Selassie in the patriotic resistance movement between 1936 and 1941? The sixth one, list the British war leaders assisted Ethiopia in the time of the war. The last one, why did Grazeni massacre Ethiopian since February 1937? Students, this is all about today's lesson. Until next time, goodbye. Stay at home. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.